Hi everyone. I keep saying that the next video is going to be my my reviews for my decks, and I will get to that, but after sort of finishing the last video, I thought of something else to add, and this video might not be the most visually interesting video, but I just thought, I did mention yesterday how we don't have a lot of disabled representation in tarot and oracle, and I just thought maybe I could weigh in with some neat ideas for any artists out there. Now, granted, I am more of an animal deck girly. Girly, I say that, but whatever. But an animal deck person. I tend to lean more towards that. I just find that energy more workable. Sometimes I can find faces a little too overwhelming. But I thought that, if somebody, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are the complete opposite, animal decks are not really their thing, and people-y decks are. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how we have a lot of disabilities that are sort of invisible. Like, even my disability, like, you can kind of tell if I do certain things, like have my phone close to my face when I'm reading, or just stuff like that, or if I use my white cane. But other than that, I don't think people could really notice. Or my partner's disabilities, that unless you see her taking her insulin or checking her blood sugar or, other things, you probably wouldn't know. And so I was like, okay, not to downplay sort of racial struggles, but it's a little bit easier to see it implemented in decks. Whereas, and then even with queer stuff's a little tricky because there's some stuff that's, a little bit less obvious. Different body styles, I guess. And obviously different relationships. Like if take the lovers card, if you have multiple lovers and some of them are two guys, two girls, something along those lines is a little obvious. Now, granted, part of my queerness, like asexuality, like, is a little harder to represent, but, or, aromanticism, but, unless you have, like, the flags, because you do have a lot of queer flags, which can help. But I thought about it, like, what can you do to represent disabilities, especially disabilities that are more invisible? And one way I suppose that could be done is say things like having the medication, right? So if you have like an insulin pen or a meter, like blood glucose meter or something along those lines, like on a table or something like that, it doesn't have to be too overt, but it can be there, and somebody who maybe would notice it, or somebody who is blind having a white cane, even if they're not using it, having it, or having a magnifier. Like, I have several lying around the house, and some of them are digital, some of them are not, or something else like that. Maybe I'm not the best with tarot, obviously, but like even a card, maybe you have an overwhelm card in an oracle, and say like you have a character there might be a lot of stuff going on, and you have like them wearing headphones or something to kind of block that out for whatever reason. I know some neurodivergent people have struggles with that, and sometimes headphones and listening to music can kind of help them not get overwhelmed by that. I don't know. I think I have some neurodivergency. I don't know. I've never been diagnosed. I do want to know, but that costs money usually. But anyway, just small things like that, and because I think that some disabilities are a lot easier to show. Now, I also think that it can get a little stereotypical, like, okay, we have somebody with a wheelchair, they're in the chariot card. Well, they don't have to be. You could have them somewhere else, or even knowing that some people who are in a wheelchair, some people are in that wheelchair 24/7, or not 24/7, because obviously they go to sleep, but like anytime they are up and about. Some people aren't. Some people can stand. Some people can use a wheelchair if they're going long distances, but if they're just walking around their house, they're fine, or something like that. So that's also something to kind of keep in mind potentially. Or even like go back to my disability, like having large print or braille. I don't really necessarily Braille would be a bit more difficult unless you have like back in the day, I had a big Braille chart, but also you'd have to kind of know Braille, kind of the same thing with sign language, which, man, I want to learn some sign language. Actually, so if I can go off on a little tangent, when we did the play, we were focusing on making it accessible for people with vision loss, but we were like, well, didn't want to exclude deaf people from it, because there was a lot of audio cues, there was a lot of like, you have to hear where you were, and it was a whole thing. But we didn't want to exclude the deaf people, so we got a few deaf actors and had basically the whole entire thing signed. And that was really great. And one thing that was kind of great is the person I was paired up with used to teach deaf blind people when he was younger. And so he kind of was very good at sort of helping me figure out signs, because obviously sign language is very like distanced, I guess. You usually don't like but then like with sort of blind sign language kind of thing, it's more like feeling it. And so, but he was really good at kind of showing me, and that was really helpful, because sometimes I'm just like, what the are you doing? I know some. I could do the alphabet if I tried hard enough. Except I'll get confused, and then my partner will tell me off because she remembers the alphabet. She had deaf friends when she was younger. I wish I'd learned. And I wish I'd learned, I wish I still knew Braille. I mean, I do. I know all the letters, some contractions, and some punctuation, but I would not say I'm an expert at Braille, partly because I didn't want to learn. And that's a whole story. It's hard when you're a child and they're like, hey, you're going to get taken out of your regular class to learn this language that nobody in your class, nobody in your school can actually talk to you in. And, you know, like, anyway, they're just some tangents, but I think that I saw one person, and this is sort of off, not on the divination side of it, but like off, like, why would you want to see, you know, why would people want to be reminded of their illnesses? It was a toy. It was like a diabetic doll, like toy, girl doll kind of thing. And I'm like, you could look at it as, why would you want to be reminded of your disability? But you could also look at it as, this toy is just like me. This person is just like me. So when I did mention in the last episode that I'm trying to be a writer, and I'm like, you know what? I'm having disabled characters. I've always kind of lent towards, kind of looked towards making a blind character, and I think that was just a habit of just wanting to see myself in a story, and not see myself in a story where it's like, woo, my disability's fixed, woo, but like, knowing that I have a disability and wanting people to see what that's like. Wow, okay. Yes. See. Anyway, sorry. I'm goofy. It's not like that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, just, I don't know. Being creative about it and being respectful and making sure that you are representing those people in positive lights, but just kind of knowing that disabled people are here and we should be included in all this stuff. And so I think that seeing more disabled representation might make me more willing to get a lot of physical decks, and not just the obvious ones, like, you know, the easy ones to show, like somebody who might be an amputee or somebody who is in a wheelchair. I feel like those are very easy to do because, you know, they're very visible. Whereas some disabilities are more invisible, but I think that that almost more so means that they should be expressed, because when you have an invisible disability, a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't see that and connect with that because of that reason. And I wish in some ways that I could make my own deck. I mean, I do have thoughts. I've always had thoughts of making my own decks, but I would definitely need to reach out and get somebody on it, because I'm not an artist, not like a visual medium artist. And my partner can somewhat, but it's tricky, so it's kind of one of those things. I can sit here and talk about this for however long, but it's just not as though I can sit down and actually do it. And again, I don't have concrete answers, and I can only really speak from my experiences and the experiences of people I know. So I can't be like, well, this is a good way to depict, I don't know, ADHD or dyslexia or something along those lines, because I don't have those. And so all I know is that I think it's very important. And yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go. This is not really supposed to be a very long video. And maybe next time I will actually do reviews of my decks. We'll see what happens. But, you know, and if anyone has any ideas, feel free to share them, or I might do a follow-up of this to see what happened, you know, to see what I might think. And if anyone has any recommendations of decks that are more accessible in that way, that would also be great. Also, another thing, just off the topic of decks, it's interesting that there are more feminine decks, but not as many masculine decks. But anyway, that's a completely different topic for completely different things, so we don't need to get into that. But also, now this video is 11 minutes right now, and that makes me happy because I like numbers when they're doubled. Anyway, I'm done. Bye, everyone.